hang out and talk. Kelly, when we get going, we kind of lose track of the time. So we're going to do our best to stay on schedule. But I'm going to just let the folks know now, we're probably just going to keep rolling on through our break and do the wrap up together, or I'll certainly wrap up by answering any questions that you have. We might even get you out of here early. You got to remember, I'm a teacher. I'm a professor,
Oh, that's right.
That's
you
right.
are.
In one class. And I know my students love it when they get out just a little bit early.
That's always a treat,
I
especially
think
on Friday.
it's 3-4 minutes. I think that's what keeps me in the one of the favorite professors. I'm hoping it's the civic and community engagement content.
Yeah, I hope it's a content.
I hope it's content. Guys, good to have you back. I could not have planned for these speakers to go in better order, but of course, I knew we wanted to end the whole thing with you together because we're business besties. We our families are close. You're my girl, and we do magic together when we are able to work together with clients, which is not always. But I do want to announce this. And I mentioned the Magnify Your Mission of Mastermind. That's my program. I work with a handful of clients at a time. I'm opening that up in November. And I'm really excited to announce the addition of, for my clients, they're going to get a session with Kelly as part of the mastermind experience, because kind of like how Sherry's a therapist in numbers, man, you can hold space for people to figure out what those content pillars are all about.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to talk about today.
We almost retitled my work a while back, you and I, as brand therapy for nonprofits.
Brand therapy.
Because that's really what it ends up involving a lot of.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here we are.
Here we are. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to meet everybody that's coming into this masterclass and do some magic together around your messaging.
Our comments over here.
And oh, perfect. Yes. So now we're talking about, we're at the end of the day, and it is perfect how you planned it. I don't know if that was intentional, but
Julie.
Well, Julie, shout out to you.
Yeah, we got to give a shout out to the whole team.
The whole tech team and the whole planning team.
Julie, Leanne, and Kara helping behind the scenes. Tamara helping me out with some promotion. Kelly's always my grounding force, and marketing at Maven, always helping me get my message on track and visibility up. And Priscilla, who helps me and my clients. She's my right-hand person in the business, making the magic happen. So, hey, thanks to you guys. Guys, give these guys a handout. I am a maniac when we get down to the wire, and they love me even then. So God bless you people.
Oh, it was really awesome. I mean, we often talk about cascading messaging.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what the past 2 days have been. It has been a cascade of just like a whole framework that if we went back and rewatched everything, if you go back and rewatch everything, you VIP members, right? The VIP folks get the recording. It's amazing, the flow and how you can take that flow and implement it into your planning. Marianne was the first one up.
Yeah.
And
that was hot.
It was really amazing. Everybody's been great. But that start, that when she was talking about mindset, and she talked about releasing outcomes, right? Releasing outcomes. And isn't that what we all need to do in like all areas of life? At least myself, I need to do that. But
amen.
Yeah. And so all this talk about fearless fundraising has just made me even more excited to talk about messaging today, because from my standpoint, you haven't asked me yet, but I know you're going to ask me.
Lay it on me. What does it mean to be fearless?
Yeah.
She's been here the whole 2 days.
Yeah. I knew the question was coming. I prepared. So to me, in my work as a communications consultant, fearless fundraising starts with a depth of knowing and trusting who you are as an organization. To me, that's what it is right there.
Ooh,
I know, isn't that?
Yeah.
And
it's about trusting yourself. Is that what you're saying? Like, you know yourself well enough that you can
that you know who you are as an organization, that you really truly know who you are, because we've talked a lot about, you know, the, well, releasing outcomes, that whole segment Marianne talked about, you know, going in knowing like, this is what we're doing. We're changing the world. You want to get on board, or
You're welcome to come along.
right? Yeah, we invite you to come along, but we know what we're doing. I mean, we don't have all the answers all the time, right? But we know the vision that we are working toward. We know what we are working to achieve, and there are people that are going to want to join you on that path, and there are people who won't. But all along, it's up to us to have that depth of trust and knowing who we are. And so when we talk about messaging, and you and I have been, as you say, we've been in this movie so many times where some of the issues that folks have with everything from, you know, writing that appeal to writing grant applications to creating an email sequence or whatever the delivery tool is. Part of the problem that they have is, well, some people just don't like writing.
Yeah.
That's just is what it is. Some people just don't like it. Some people just don't have the confidence in it because they sit down in front of that blank slate and they're like, oh my God, what am I saying? What am I saying today? You know, how do I say it different? You know, or how do I say it to this new group of folks, or whatever the questions that come up. But so it ends up being kind of a confidence issue, right? If we were confident in our messaging and had what I would call, and we're going to talk about this because I push this on everybody to do a brand profile, to create a brand profile for yourself. And I can't wait. We're going to talk about that. Whether you do it with me or on your own, you just need to do this for yourself because it's going to give you that confidence. So anyway, I'm getting so far ahead of myself, but basically
believe me, there are a lot of details that we're going to back into, but that is a really
Yes.
important overview. And one of the most amazing things that I see, I work with clients in strategic planning to build out their core message in the sense of mapping out their strategic alliances and where they can leverage their power to bring in the right partners. But for people to really dig in and understand, how is it we want to present? How do we want to be known and accepted in the world? And how do we message that and deliver that message consistently over time to build that brand profile in people's hearts and minds?
Yes.
You know,
Yes,
that's what branding is. It's the space that you occupy in their heart and their mind, where they know they're in your bubble. They're passionate about your work. They understand your work. I love what do you say? I always,
my little three questions. Who are we? Who cares? And how do we reach them?
Yeah.
And that just takes out all the marketing mumbo jumbo, right? I mean, there are, you know, value propositions and all this stuff that we get thinking about, and the complexities. It's not complex. It's not complex. It is simple. It's not shallow. It's not shallow work at all, but it is simple, a simple framework.
Yeah.
So, and I get really excited when we do this because the story, building that, you're basically building your whole brand story. And the thing is, it's not just for the people out there. It's as much for us.
Yeah.
It's as much for us because it gives us that confidence. You know, if you ever go up to give a speech, you know, part of the fear, I talk with a lot of people about this kind of thing, and the fear that we have, that deep fear of public speaking or singing or whatever. But part of the fear of speaking for a lot of folks that I talk with is that they don't feel confident in the content, right? They don't feel like the authority that they should.
I could totally relate to that.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of that imposter thing, right? Where it's
like I know what I want to say, but I don't feel like it's organized well enough, or I have the words readily available, or I'm gonna be able to move them through. And that's when I come to you to say, does this make sense?
Yeah.
And then you start asking the questions.
And it's hard to do for yourself.
It's hard to do.
It's really hard to do for yourself. So when you get other eyes on it, when you know, when Amy and I work together on these things, you know, we just can help bring a lot of clarity to the situation. But knowing that content is, you know, having your brand profile is as much, it is as valuable for you as it is for everybody else.
Yeah, it's like strategic planning. You kind of have to blow it up so you can simplify it. And I like how you always say you want to make sure that your message is clear, concise, and confident.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what this whole process that you work us through
That's
is all
what it's
about.
And so we're not going to, well, we're not going to do slides, I don't think, because we're just having fun kind of sitting here together. And, you know, we hope you're having fun with this too.
We think we're incredibly
Yeah.
entertaining. Let's hope some other people think so too.
Yeah, if you think we're entertaining, type it in the chat. If you think we're boring, you would rather look at slides, then let us know.
Yes, Constance, this is the session on messaging. Welcome to Master Your Fundraising Message. We're just getting started, so you're in the right spot. Exactly.
Yes. I do want to tell you, because of the way that the loose nature of how we're going to be talking about this, I do have some slides. You can email me afterwards. I will send you the slide deck so that you can see the particulars.
We can get that out. Yeah.
Yes. But so I thinking about, the fear behind asking for money, makes me think about a core question that I like to think about. I like to spring this question on you and see what you think. It's not a question, it's a statement. The most important asks are those that we make before we ask for money.
The most important ask are the asks we do before we ask for money.
Before we ask for money, the questions that we ask of ourselves as an organization. And that's going to take us into this brand profile thing, right? So if we start with I have two questions for you. One is as pertaining to messaging. One is, what messages do you need to communicate? And that's a different question than what am I currently communicating, or what do I want to communicate? What messages do you need to communicate? And that's a loaded question, and we're going to come back and dive into that a little bit. So this question is pertaining to the development side of messaging, because I'm thinking of messaging in two ways: development and delivery.
I love that. So you develop the message. Everybody wants to jump to delivering the message, right? They want to jump in on the marketing, but if you haven't mapped out what it is you're trying to say, to whom, for what type of response,
right?
You could really start throwing a lot of spaghetti on the wall.
You're throwing. That's exactly what it is. I mean, and that's making me hungry. But yes, it is like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's what sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But the delivery, it's such a different process. It's a different skill set. It's a different mindset than development.
It's often a different expert.
Exactly.
I like to say when I help nonprofits think courageously about that next leap of faith they're going to take, that next hire, that next contractor. I often say, okay, you've got your finance experts, you've got controllers and CPAs and CFOs, accountants, bookkeepers. You have to first figure out who you need in that continuum. Same thing with marketing. You've got designers, you've got copywriters, you've got strategists. You've got people who dabble in terms of sales and strategic planning, and you've got people who manage the whole structure and who have people on their team that does different points. Frustration can come when you hire the wrong skill set for the job you needed, and that isn't necessarily their fault.
No. And it really is a different skill set. It really is. I mean, when you talk about and you're right, a lot of times we want to jump to the delivery, but we haven't done the groundwork that we need to do in the development of the message, which makes the delivery either more difficult or less effective. So, if you bring somebody in to do your social media or create those email blasts, whatever, send out the newsletters, whatever, and you don't have your message down, now it's on that person to kind of make something up and wing it, or to draw this out of you and the powers that be at your organization, which that becomes a different, that's a different skill set, and it's a different process.
It's a different job title too.
It really is. Yeah.
I was the grant writer early on in my career. One of my first fundraising jobs, I was responsible for raising $350,000 a year in grants, and with no authority. Like, I was third down in the fundraising department, and I was having to report out on $200,000 grant proposals, or $50,000 grant proposals, or $10,000 grant proposals. And I was hoping people followed through with what they said, because I was going to have to spin it back to the grantor. I mean, this was a $20 million organization, so I was in multiple departments. It's sort of like marketing in the sense
Yes, it
that
is.
you're still helping people craft their story and hold them accountable to what they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's the challenge of communications in general. That role is huge. It's very consuming. You really have to have your hands in everything, every aspect of it, right? I mean, as a comms person, I'm looking at everything from statistics and numbers to, stories.
Staff spotlight. Sometimes I've
spotlight.
seen you do series on different employees
Yeah.
to help your community get to know your team, not just
Absolutely.
those you serve.
And see what what is the internal, everybody's got their story about, what attracts them to your mission. What's attracting your internal folks to your mission? That can be very revealing, very, very revealing, and an important thing to know. And also when you think about, and I don't want to go into a rabbit hole here, which I love to do.
She'll do it.
I love doing that.
She'll do it.
But
We
see,
got it.
the rabbit hole is why
It's her
I can,
genius.
it's what I do, right? This is what we do. We go down rabbit holes together and we really get to the heart and soul of your brand. But okay, I'm just not going to go down that rabbit hole.
Do it,
Let me
girl.
just
Do it.
Okay, so when you start to think about what your internal folks think about what you're doing, think about the fact that when they're out and about talking to people, that's what they're saying, right? So these are your closest ambassadors. What are they saying? Are we all on the same page? Are we out there? So these are the things, having a unifying
Messaging strategy.
messaging hub. This is really powerful. It's so powerful internally.
You know what that reminds me of are the frustrations I hear from nonprofits. Man, my board, they don't do anything and they don't even donate. So I want a document that forces them to donate. And yeah, we got templates in the mastermind. We got board commitment templates and yada, yada, yada. We can even make you an org chart. It's not going to help your employees know what to do though. Because here's the thing, your board is not cutting a check to your organization. It's fair to be frustrated, but it's also an opportunity to say why. What are our employees out there saying about us? What do they intuitively feel about us? Why isn't our board inspired to give us money? It kind of it comes down to we're not reaching them somehow.
Something, there's a disconnect.
Something's not
somewhere.
clicking.
Yeah.
It's not just that they're lazy.
Right. And having talking points, having a one sheet for your board members. It's why wouldn't we do that to empower them as well?
Oh, I know, because we don't know them. We don't know what the talking points need to be. That might be stopping us from prepping them for our ambassadors.
Oh, good. Okay, so now we're out of that rabbit hole and we're back on track, I think, because yes, you brought us right back around. So how do we get there? How do we get to this messaging that is cohesive, that is consistent, that is clear and confident, and that unifies you with your volunteer leadership, your staff, your community, your funders? How do we get to this point? And it's in answering those two questions that we just talked about. You're going to get the slide deck, that we're not showing you right now. We just
Top secret.
top secret until you send that email to me. So development, that's what this whole first element of first topic is about, the message development. Amy, you use an acronym that I really like. T, just like the tea I'm drinking.
Spill the tea.
Spill the tea. You tell them what it is.
You got to communicate in a way that builds trust, that builds emotional connection, and it builds your authority as a leader in the industry. And you got to deliver it in a way that's like talking to your girlfriend. You're spilling the tea with your girl, you know, and you got in order to really engage and create that sense of loyalty. But
Yeah.
your messaging should be pulled together in a way that's accomplishing those three things. And
Yes.
you have lots of ways to talk people
Yes.
through that. But
yes. Well, the one that my favorite way to work through this, and again, this is something you'll get the slides. So if you want to do this on your own, tackle it on your own. I would love to see you all do that and let me know how it goes. Let me know if it's helpful to you. Otherwise, I have worked with clients, and I'd be happy to work with you on this. We get together and we create your brand profile. And what in the world is a brand profile? I mean, you know, you could think of lots of different things, and it could mean a lot of different things to different people. What it means to me and to the clients that I've worked with is creating that core messaging. And if you already have great core messaging, that's awesome. If you've got your mission and your vision and your core values, and especially if you've worked with Amy on these things, then I know they're going to be top notch. I know they're going to be really super effective and tight. Now, so, you know, core messaging, whether you have to tweak it a little bit or have it all rock starred out and it's done, we start to bring this together. And we're bringing this together with a lot of other elements that showcase who you are, that reach down to the core of who you are as an organization. Remember those 3 questions we talked about earlier. The work we do in brand profiling is we answer 3 questions. Who are we? Who cares? And how do we reach them? That's the job. And the who are we piece is a lot fuller and richer than you might imagine. And when you start to dig in, there are so many things that make you who you are, that make up who you are. Obviously, your core messaging that we just talked about, your history or your origin story, that is such a great aspect.
How'd you come to be? Yeah.
Yes. What were you seeing in the community? What was happening? And this is kind of like the beginning of any story arc, right? Is what was the situation? What's the setup? What's the exposition? What was happening that made you get out there and say, I need to do something about this. I need to make a change. I need to be a part of driving change in this area. And then what did you do? And what's that story? Why we serve the community, knowing your why. We've been talking about that in marketing for a long time, right? Knowing your why. Who you serve, your audiences, that's part of your story as well. That's part of telling who you are. Your programs and services are a part of who you are. The descriptions that you use, that you've put out there in the world in various forms. You know, you have something on your LinkedIn, you've got something on your website, you've got something on your Facebook. These are all a part of you telling and sharing who you are, your value proposition, your outcomes, your impact, all of the stats and data. It's all a part of this who we are.
Please just don't do it in one 20-minute conversation, because you're going to bore the bejesus off of somebody. You've got
well, and you're not going to, this isn't so that you sit there and tell somebody, here's who we are, these 25
I'm going to tell it
gazillion
to
things
you all at one time.
Yeah, that's not what this is for. This brand profile is a document that you put together that serves as your sort of communications hub. And this is your messaging hub, your communications hub, so that whenever you need to sit down and write that appeal or that grant application or that email, that letter, whatever you're putting together, you have it all. You just need to refer back and get that messaging. You may be tweaking it, of course, you may be, you know, working it and crafting it in different ways, but you are always using the messaging that you built, that you intentionally developed, that you are sure of, that leaves you with cohesiveness around all of your platforms. So you're not saying one thing here and something different there, and leaving people a little bit uncertain about who you are.
Yeah.
And we've all seen that. We've probably all done it from time to time. You know, you've got a brochure that says this, and then it says it a little different over here. And that little difference isn't such a little difference, because it's just enough to confuse people. People
are watching closely enough that you can feel when you're in a brand bubble, when you're in somebody's world, right? We talked about that with community. It's a feeling. But all of this content isn't to be delivered at one time, but what you said earlier was a cascading messages.
Yes.
And that's the whole notion of getting it organized, so you can have
Yes.
fun rolling out messaging based on what their interests
Yes.
are, not just what you want to tell and when you want to tell it, but meeting your people where they are, so that you're always building trust, emotional connection, and authority. A few folks asked about that acronym. Trust, emotional connection, and authority.
And so, and then what you were talking about is, as you deliver to different groups, now we get into the who cares section of the brand profile. And now we're answering that question. Who cares? Who cares about what we're doing? And you're going to find, sometimes we focus so much on our primary audience that we don't think about all the other, you talk about cascading messaging. Think about your cascading audiences, how, okay, it's the people that need your service, but it's also the people that care about them. Who are those people? Who are the people referring and caring for those people? Your local community members who are getting the positive impact in their, because you're creating you're having impact on the entire community. If you're helping a person, you're helping a community, is the way that I would see that.
Yeah.
So who are the community leaders that care, or that are watching? Government funders. I mean, it's obviously, these are different audiences, and we have, and each of them is different, is interested in different aspects.
That's exactly
of
right.
your message. Not everybody wants to hear all of it all the time.
And that's important, really important, and something I see nonprofit leaders make a lot, because you want to tell the whole story. When you want to tell it, you're going to really insist that that person absorb it all. And that is no way to throw a party.
And they won't absorb it all.
And they ultimately won't absorb it all. What I want to say is, you mentioned the who cares. I think that's such an important part. And you said you focus on your primary circle of folks. And you can get frustrated that the group isn't growing. In strategic planning, we map out your strategic alliances. And instead of focusing on your primary audience and what they are doing, I see a lot of folks very focused on what their primary audience isn't doing. And I think you bring up an excellent point, that we have to bust through that primary audience. Because when we do, and when we use our messaging to really grow community building momentum, it's amazing how people start stepping up. And then our job as leaders is to welcome them with open arms. I'm so glad you're here now. Where the hell have you been? Right? You just are ready for them. But it is amazing how it catches on like wildfire and will ignite people to do more and get more involved. And sometimes it requires you to focus on that secondary tier. One thing about that, because it really does tie to strategic planning, your next tier isn't random and I wonder who they could possibly be. Right?
No.
You gotta, what Kelly's saying is dead on. You gotta think about, who cares about this? Who wants us to succeed? Who doesn't want us to succeed? Who wants a tight housing market where there isn't a lot of low income affordable housing? Because there is somebody out there benefiting from that. And I don't mean to get all like political and figuring out all, but you have to first understand your job in finding your people means it's accepting that there are people not cheering you on, right? And you got to make sure you're not wasting your energy and time convincing people, but really using your message as that driver to rally your crowd.
Somebody focused on that in their presentation yesterday, I believe, and that's such a good point. I mean, we all have limited resources, especially with communications. I don't know. I know there are a lot of smaller organizations out there that don't have a dedicated communications person, let alone team. So yeah, you've got to use your resources wisely. And yeah, there are some people that are never going to want to, that they're just never going to believe in what you're doing. And that's okay.
Yeah, stop wasting time trying to figure out why. It doesn't make any sense to me either. But the fact is, they might be more passionate about helping animals and animal welfare.
Yeah.
They might be more interested in global warming and being on the front lines of fighting climate change. They might be totally focused on the BLM movement. It's not up to us to judge. It's up to us to stay focused and to find our people and give them a nice, comfy home.
Yeah. And when you find them, we've got to talk with them. We've got to learn about them and get their stories. And I think sometimes we miss out on that opportunity. A lot of times we might be overwhelmed. We just have too much going on. We may not have a dedicated person to do it. But if and when you can, it's really important to sit down with folks, whether it be, even if you get an email testimonial, however you do it. But it's nice to have a conversation. I personally think you get much more out of a conversation, whether it be a phone call or a sit down for coffee. I think you get much more out of that than asking people to write you testimonials. I think asking people to write you, their stories is intimidating for some folks. And there's a way to get around that, but I can't talk about it today. But when you sit down and talk with people and ask them what brought you to us, what was it about our mission that made you say, yeah, I want to get involved. It's one thing to watch someone, to watch an organization, look at their Facebook every now and again, check out their emails, but it's another thing to get that level deeper by making a donation or coming to an event, or, taking that next step. And so what is it that's bringing them? Why are you so important to them?
So important to them.
And that's, why do you matter to them? So
1.5 million organizations. Why you?
Yeah.
I'm curious. Aren't you curious?
You got to be curious about that. You've got to be curious about that. And the more you start to understand how they're thinking and what they're feeling and how your work matches up and aligns with their desires, the community they want, the world they want to live in, that's when you start to be, you start to get some fire in your messaging with
some fire and
understanding.
I've seen you do this over and over again. And I love one example I've seen very successful is in ramping up visibility, getting not so much that people didn't care about the cause, they just didn't know the organization was there. And so as we launched a major fundraising campaign, Kelly started months earlier, starting with that newsletter. You designed Stories of Hope. What, a story arc? I'm no marketing person. I don't know. The story arc, and you called it Stories of Hope, where you told a series of client stories in a where it protected their privacy, but really shared what caused the problem, what led to the situation, how the organization solved it. And you rolled these out over a series of months, and a year later, they're still using this story arc. I saw at a special event, they had it on poster boards. That's good content. That's content that they invested in 18 months ago to design a couple of success story testimonials. You interviewed the clients, you crafted the stories. A year later, they're still using that same content because it's that good. I think that's a great win.
Yeah, I mean, and we found just a simple way to do it. We found a simple way to do it. It was really a social media campaign mainly, and then also, put out an email. But that, and that tied in with education, because part of our job as communicators for organizations is educating people on why is there this problem? Why is there a problem for us to solve? And in that organization's case, we were dealing with homelessness, which is a very misunderstood issue and a very complex issue. And
I was just at the CAP conference. Community action organizations are who fund housing activities throughout our country. Federal money gets moved down. And to be honest, they for a generation haven't had to communicate with the community at large, educating them on what your housing crisis looks like in your neighborhood, because the money was coming through the feds and there was really no impetus to take time off programming to just keep the general public up to date. Now that demand is soaring and funding is sinking, they are behind in educating their community on what housing and homelessness, food scarcity, and energy resources look like in communities. Those are the three things they fund.
Yeah.
Kelly, one way I look at it, tell me if this resonates with you. So I started talking about this yesterday. I'm going to reinforce this, but I like to think of it. And when I talk to folks about their fundraising strategy, people really give money to an organization, in my experience, for one of four reasons, possibly a combination of these, right? One, and to your point, They care about the cause. They care about what's causing housing. They want to know what the homelessness situation is in their community. They care about solving the poverty problem that's causing homelessness and food scarcity, right? So they want to help with housing, but they really care about solving poverty at the very highest level. When you're talking at this level, you're bringing in more donors, not just people who care about housing, but now you're expanding your strategic allies. The second reason is they care about the people you serve. They care about your mission. They care about your programs and how your programs are impacting individual lives or groups of lives. The third reason that people give, and I think this is what you really do well by educating folks over time, they care about the leaders. They're invested in the competency and the capability of the organization and those that lead the organization. So they're investing not just in poverty, not just in housing, but they're investing specifically in you and your organization to help them feel better about the situation. So they're investing in the leadership. And then finally, I'll pass it back over to you. They want to know what's in it for them. They want to know the return on investment. Can you help them get in front of that politician, get in the newspaper? Can you help them get in front of your audience with a banner or sponsoring your event? No judgment, but they, for whatever reason, could benefit from accessing your community of clients, the people reading your newsletters and attending your events. So when I think about how you go about helping people figure out their messaging, how I start that process through strategic planning and brand profiling, I like to remind folks that your messaging should be going to answer one of those four questions to build that trust, that authority, and that emotional connection.
Yeah. Well, and when I work on brand profiling, and you'll want to do this too if you decide to take my challenge and work on your brand profile, that's one of the things that we end up doing towards the end of the process is we say, okay, so now we know who we are, we know who cares. We know how we're going to reach them in terms of our communication tools. We've defined the tools, we've defined the key messages. Now, how are we delivering these key messages to these audience groups? And there is a way to tell that in the brand profile, you're building out all of that messaging. So there's no guesswork when you're sitting down to prepare for your sit down with a funder or your coffee with a local government official, or there's no guesswork in what you're going to talk about. You go in knowing exactly what you need to discuss, and not being naive about what their interests are. Right? We can't be naive and think everybody's in it for the
time. Find out what their interests are and get right down to it.
And I mean, when you think about it, I mean, I always like to ask this, like, okay, so here we are spending 2 days thinking about what's going to make people give us their money. Well, I want to ask us, what was the last donation you made? What did you donate? Who did you donate to? And why did you donate? Did you get an email? Did you get a letter? Did you see a commercial on TV? Think about that for a second. I'd love for you to put it in the chat.
Yeah, put that in the chat. I'm trying to think. The last donation that went through was a recurring donation that I make every month to a political action committee, to my local political party, so that they can continue to elect officials that will represent my values. That's my hope. So that I saw it come through just yesterday or the day before, my monthly contribution. It's an interesting question. What about you guys? Where did you donate outside of your own organizations? You got an email that made you do it?
What about that email got you? You probably get 25,000 emails a day. Maybe not 25,000, but you get a lot of emails. What made you open that one? Really, my donations are always based on something that tugs at my heart. Right. There you go. Recurring to our bringing justice.
Just given to his church. Yep.
Hey, there's an old saying.
There's a lot of trust there, right? They don't need to have this perfect appeal that you're in community and relationship.
Kids initiatives. Yes.
So you have a theme of organizations that you prioritize.
There's an old saying that is so true, and we always need to remember this, which is you can tell a person's values by looking at their checkbook.
That's a Joe Biden quote.
It's a Joe Biden.
It's a Joe Biden.
before him.
Well, he's been around 900 years.
Oh, that's true.
So I think it was back in the day. I really think, unless he
Mhm.
quoted somebody else, somebody tell me if you know that. But yeah, that is, I've heard that quoted when he was in the Senate.
Well, it's true.
It is true.
It's so true. And that's
Look
what
at
we're,
somebody's checkbook register if you want to know their priorities.
this is what we're talking about right now. This is exactly what we're talking
And
about.
what Sherry Kistler was talking about earlier.
Yes.
It all comes out in the accounting, folks, all of it. It all
And so this
shakes
is,
out.
and this is where, and we've talked about this before. Okay, so I do copywriting. That's part of what I do. It's part of my gig. And I'm not trying to devalue it, but you can spend forever trying to get the right words and just the right sentence structure and all this. You know what? If you matter to somebody, a typo in your email is not going to stop them from hitting that donate button. And I just want to free your mind about this, right?
Take some pressure off.
Yeah, take some of that pressure off, because I think that's a lot of times what gets in our way when we're sitting down to write. And that's part of the fear, that's part of the intimidation of writing campaigns or writing emails and appeals. And we think we've got to get everything just right. And there's so much pressure. If you're authentic, I think to me, that is the most important thing, that you're authentic and you're telling the truth.
In all of your imperfections.
They'll still love you. I mean, yeah, a typo's not gonna, hey, if you were going to give to that, Pamela, if you were going to give to that kids initiative and they sent you an email and the graphic wasn't as beautiful as it could be, I'm all for great graphics, great writing. Like I can hardly, I'll be honest. I mean, it's a pet peeve of mine. I can hardly stand to send anything out if it doesn't look really nice. I do like it to look nice, but at the same time, that's not that's not why you're giving.
I love that foster care. I don't know if it's just a Pennsylvania statewide foster care marketing series that it shows parents like trying to be perfect or falling short.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have to be
Oh,
perfect.
right.
You just have to show up.
Yeah. And to Constance's point, oh, heck yeah, proofread. Oh, for God's sake, do what you can. Yeah, do what you can. And if you're not using Grammarly, I don't know why. I don't know why.
She got me.
I say it all the time. I've been saying it for years. Just get Grammarly. It's such a great tool. It's here we go. You're unraveling everything I've ever learned about asking for anything, and extra space between words throws me off. That is Dorit. Okay, so can I just say, Dorit and I used to work together at the Music Harris Foundation and the Grammy Foundation, and Dorit, I'm so glad you're here. So Dorit and I have a game that now we're a country apart. She's in California, and I'm not anymore. But we used to, every time we would go out to dinner, we would see who could find a typo in the menu first. Who would be the first to
That
find
sounds
a
like
typo.
a lot of fun.
So, okay, so that sounds totally contrary to what I just said. What I'm not saying, look at her, she's got a heart there. Okay, so what I'm not saying is I'm not saying go out there and send out your sloppiest work. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that
Don't take yourself so seriously.
just do your best, but don't let those fears about perfection stop you from getting to the heart of your message and getting it out there. Now that actually is another reason why the brand profile, that's another case I would make.
Keeps you grounded.
Yeah, to having your brand profile done, because you're going to be less likely to to have typos, and you're going to have all of your messaging done. You can copy and paste, and of course you're going to be tweaking. But so, oh my gosh, where are we in this brand profile discussion? Where are we? We talked about who cares, getting your audiences figured out, learning who they are, learning how they want to communicate with you, how they want to get involved with you. And then
We haven't even talked about asking for money yet.
No.
This is the beauty of this.
Yes,
This
that's
is,
what
this
it's
is the secret to the easy ask.
Is that why we're talking about this?
Well, this is so.
Are we
if you
still
were
talking about fundraising?
right? Are we or
I
leadership?
forgot.
I forget what we're talking
I
about.
forgot.
But if we remember the 3 steps that I introduced yesterday of building a wildly engaged community, it's the big vision, which you're certainly tackling in addition to other things. It's the digital first approach. And then thirdly, it's the easy ask. And you're breaking it down perfectly. It's all this work you're doing before we actually even ask for money. This is how you make fundraising easy and enjoyable.
This is the groundwork.
You're building, you have a messaging strategy that's building trust, emotional connection, and authority before you even get in front of them with an email asking for money or face-to-face or.
And okay, so again, I'm going to remind you, you're going to get the slide deck. So all the elements that we're talking about that will help you answer those questions. Who are we? Who cares? How do we reach them? That will all be in the slide deck. But you know,
shoot to it if you want to too. Just let me know.
Oh, no, that's okay. You just send me an email, Kelly B. Harper at Gmail, KELLY, the right way, as I would say.
The right way.
No offense to Kelly with IEs.
You're going to get canceled. We're all going to get canceled.
I'm going to get in trouble for that. But yeah, just send me an email. I'll send you the deck. But the last piece of the brand profile is now, how do we reach these folks? The key messages that are tailored to your different audiences. And, you know, and this isn't about fluffing who you are or change or going against your integrity to slant your message in ways that aren't quite legit. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about there just are different aspects to your messaging. There just are different points of impact and different types of impact. That there's a layering, and you start to uncover that when you start to work through your brand profile. 3 amazing things happen that you don't even have to try to make happen. One is your, as Amy likes to call it, cascading messaging comes clear. It just unfolds and you see it. It's almost like a story arc developing. And if you didn't know it before, you will see it. It will become clear to you as you move through this process. The other thing that I love about what happens is you start to see inconsistencies. If you have holes in your story, if you have inconsistencies, or if there's messaging or language that you need to develop and you haven't, all of that's going to come clear now. You're going to see that as you move through this process. And you're going to know, oh yeah, I've been saying that, but you know what? I'm not sure. I mean, it might get you rethinking your mission. I mean, not that any of us ever have to do that. But
if it's longer than 10 words, you're going to need to do something.
Amy's a stickler for the 10-word mission. I'm not.
If you can't simply.
I agree with that. I'm not a 10-word stickler, but she's I've seen that before. There's a really cool exercise, an Ernest Hemingway exercise called the 6-word story. I don't know if you've ever tried that. Oh, is it hard? If you want to prepare good for Amy, if you want to prepare for an Amy work session on your mission statement, you better do this 6-word exercise. 6-word story exercise is what it is. You try to write your organization's story in 6 words.
Oh my gosh, I haven't done that.
Ooh,
I love it though.
It's a real challenge. We talk about getting to the very core and of who you are. It's
it's a great one. Sometimes in my group, the Big Hearted, the Facebook group, it's the free group. We've been dropping the link in here. But one time I asked the question, what's your mission in emojis?
Oh, I remember that.
Do you remember that?
Yeah,
it was a while back. I got to do that
responses.
But it was kind of a cool way to again boil it down very simply. I just really want to enforce that. I love this idea that if you know who you're talking to and you understand what your message is and what part of the message that is most interesting to that group of people, it just gets so easy.
Yeah.
And then you know what kind of social media, you know what messaging to put out there. So people almost feel like you're connecting with them. You're listen. It's like you're in my mind. When I hear that from folks, and I'm getting pretty good. I hear it a couple times a month. My God, I saw your post. It's like you're in my head.
Yeah.
That didn't happen by accident. Took 25 years of being in nonprofits. And it also takes me a lot of surveying of clients and prospective clients to hear what their pain points are, because things change, the landscape changes. And I'm not a nonprofit CEO right now. So I have to have systems in place. And honestly, they in large part come through my sales calls. When somebody is talking to me about possibly working with me, I take notes like crazy, because to me, those are the buzzwords. Those are the themes. Those are the challenges that are popping up for people now today. I don't assume they were the same challenges 5 years ago, 5 months ago, 5 weeks ago. I have informal ways of surveying my nonprofit community so I can make sure my content and my messaging is on point.
It's ongoing. It's not something that you do once and it's done. It's like your strategic plan. You don't, it's not going to be of much benefit to you if you do a strategic plan and then never look at it. And 5 years later, you're in every year thing. I mean, well, every day things are coming up and changing. And same with your brand profile. I mean, these are things these are living, breathing documents. These are, it's ongoing work. It's just like your personal growth and development. It's just, so is the growth and development of your organization.
I don't want to digress too much and get you off track or anything.
Oh, okay. We haven't gotten off track at all.
That would never happen. It's a good thing we haven't gotten happy.
Are we ever going to talk about delivery? I don't know.
We're just developing. We're developing. Okay, we can say this. I'm going to put the teaser out there.
Okay.
Because I love your work that you do when you're working with your students in voice. You're a voice coach, which we didn't even talk about that aspect of your training. But you mentioned it earlier because you tap into people's biggest insecurities and fears around showing up in a confident way, and how it can be much more internal. Oh, she's feeling it. Do you see that? It's really powerful.
It gets
work.
deep.
Yeah.
It gets real
You
deep.
even have an awesome program called Karaoke Confidence.
Yes, which is trademarked, you unicorn folks.
Yeah, they'd be proud of you. It's trademarked intellectual property, but it's much more the emotional breakthrough preparing for karaoke, evidently.
So I remember when I was first making the correlation between the jumble of things that I do, it felt very jumbled. I was like, oh my gosh, as a comms person who likes things to fit neatly into 3 buckets,
everything is in 3 buckets.
My stuff isn't fitting into 3 buckets. How can that be? I got to make that fit. And
You're special.
And I'm special. I'm the unicorn. But I realized it does. Everything I do it's all about communication, the voice. I mean, even whether you're singing or speaking, it's about what you're getting across. Oh my gosh. But that communication starts in here. And that's, again,
whether you're singing or you're fundraising.
Whether you're singing, speaking, fundraising, that communication starts in here. And it also, it's about this work. It's also about listening. And that is something that we've talked about a lot. Communication is more than what we're saying, what we're putting out there to the world. It's how we are listening, and this back and forth, I don't want to get, woo-woo, but there's an energy that we are putting out there, and there is energy coming back at us. And paying attention to that is an ongoing it's a responsibility.
Otherwise you might fall in the trap of just being more of the noise out there. When you do it from a heart-centered place, you've taken the time to understand what your clients need to hear about, what your funders need to hear about, what your team needs to hear about, what needs to be on that agenda for that meeting. Do the work. You owe that of your community. And I know how busy things are, but things won't change for you if you don't slow down enough to prioritize a couple of these pieces that we've gone over the last 2 days, but certainly in messaging. One of my favorite things I love to do in the mastermind, I don't know if we have any Magnify Your Mission mastermind folks on the call, but I love the role playing before they're getting ready to go to a session. And they might say, okay, I've got a meeting with this politician. I've got a meeting with this foundation. I've got a meeting with this local business. What am I asking for? What am I saying? And we back into the work we've been doing, right? And the fact is the message doesn't really change no matter who you're talking to. When you know who you are, the message really doesn't change. It's which part of the message you focus that person on based on their interests.
Right. That's it.
Some people really want I want to give $25 to help pay for a backpack to help a kid go to school. They care about the people you're serving. Some people want to understand what the trends of poverty are in our neighborhoods, why our school district is at a 70% poverty rate, what's causing that to happen in our local town. So you want to share stories that relate to funding streams and funding problems. Not everybody's going to pick up on that story. Not everybody wants to hear about that backpack program, but you're peppering intentionally different kinds of messages to really rope in and attract people. And it's a responsibility as a leader, not just to add to noise, but to really put out content that people care about.
I mean, I think a good example might even be Neighborhood North Museum of Play, right?
Yeah.
So, on the surface, it's a children's museum. You can go and have a whole lot of fun with your kids or your grandkids.
She's amazing.
It's just a fun place to, so that's that's a message, right? But then you dig a little deeper and you see how playful learning is a pretty powerful thing and a pretty important thing for a child to experience, and a cool thing for a parent or a caregiver to experience with their child. We could use more of it as adults, right? But that's a little deeper. And then if you keep going deeper or zooming out, whichever way you want to look at it, I'd say actually now zooming out, what is the impact on the community? How does that impact equity and education? Now you start to, now your messaging is starting to shift a bit to economic development, workforce development. I mean, it can go in a lot of different
Politics
places
and government.
now. Yeah.
I know for Christine over at Neighborhood North, we worked on there's a lot of content out there. Your zip code shouldn't dictate your future salary, which speaks to the inequality. And in Pennsylvania, we have an interesting political funding situation that causes great disparity between school districts who are right next to each other, because so much percentage of the funding comes from the local community, so that there's no real plan to level the playing field statewide. When Christine and I were talking about that, she's like, but it's a museum and we're coming in here to play. That's great. But to get the attention of politicians, to get the attention of school districts who can help fund this, to get the attention of community members who might not need the programs for themselves, but who understand that libraries help level the playing field, and they care about that. They care about social justice. And if you can really help people see how our museum is a critical step in leveling the playing field to create justice in our communities, you might just talk about, we need this equipment for this particular installation at the museum, but you might end up talking to an elected official or corporation that's moving into the community, and they need to understand these bigger picture issues. So it just depends.
Absolutely.
It just depends.
But as we communicate, we need to be mindful of all these things, the whole picture, the zoom in, the zoom out. And that's, again, what the brand profile process helps you to get a handle on. Buell Park, when we worked with Buell Park, that was another one.
That was interesting.
There was a lot of focus on all of the amenities at the park and all of the programs.
The list of what we do.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. There's so much to do. But also, let's not forget to look at the fact that this park is helping local major industries and businesses bring workers in from other places. Because guess what? When they want to move to this small town in Sharon, PA, what kind of a life are they going to have there when they move there? What kind of a life is their family going to have? That's important to them. So now we're a part of workforce development. we're an important part. We're an important part of the environmental situation there, because how many trees do we have, and how
And you know what? I love that example because it's really talking to why how we help corporations be more successful. And here's the thing. And I know this is really hard as a country. We don't always hold our corporations accountable, but you have to pay your fair share. If you want us to be here to make this a desirable community to live in, so you can recruit top talent from around the country, we need you to pay your fair share. And here is our total budget we need, and here's what we need from you to do it. I love when we get into this, and I work with libraries a lot. You know who should be helping libraries are real estate agents in the realty industry. They depend on the success of our neighborhoods to make a lot of money, more than almost anyone else. So you might have a mission where it would be helpful to call in real estate, your realtors, the local real estate association in your community, because they have a lot to lose when our neighborhoods start to not look as nice or have the amenities that folks are used to. School districts aren't performing. So just some things to think about when we start brainstorming the who cares.
Yeah. And so that's where, you know, again, this is all feeding into that fearless fundraising, because now as you're coming through this process, you're starting to see, holy crap, we are important on so many levels, and your confidence is going to just shoot through the roof when you're
not just nice to have, damn it, we need you.
Yes, you are an integral part of the success of the community. And that when you start to tap into that and you see it in black and white in front of you on that brand profile, and you look at that every day and you get fired up.
This is what you're going to
That is a superpower. that is part of your superpower bag of tricks. And it's not tricks. I shouldn't even use that word, but
they're tricks. No,
it's so now
I think about fundraisers like that.
Okay.
Fundraisers are sort of the tricks and the gimmicks, the event,
okay.
the end of the year appeal. If you
that.
think that's what's raising you money, the thank you note, that's not what's raising you money. It's what you're talking about. It's the real difference in the neighborhood, the community, the world, or country that you are contributing to.
Yeah.
And nobody is going to value that if you don't first value that about yourself. You are not just a list of programs.
That's right.
Your programs are super important, but those programs add up to help create a reality we want to see. I love this concept of fundraising. And your job is the best part because you're the tool to do it. If you can capture someone's imagination of what's possible for their community, they will be a loyal donor for you forever. Fundraising, I think, is a byproduct of really capturing a community's imagination of what's possible.
And that is, somebody needs to put that in the chat. Quote her on that, because you know what?
Write that down.
Somebody said yesterday, oh, I wish I could remember who it was, but somebody said yesterday, or I'm gonna struggle to remember.
Well, one of the speakers, Dana, the grant.
I think it was Dana, or Dana or Marianne.
Tell me what it was.
Said,
I'll remember.
They said something about how instead of thinking of it, flip the negative to a positive. Instead of thinking of what we're going to stop from being or what we're going to end, think about what we're creating. And I really like that flip and turning that into a positive, because that's where you really tap into people's desires. And I know for a long time we've talked about pain points, and yes, that's important, but let's bring us to the other side of the story arc where we've got resolution. What does that new world look like? What does that resolved community or resolved problem create in our community? And that can be highly motivating and exciting.
For those of you who were in session yesterday, the create a world statement is, again, Kelly really helps you build out a very comprehensive brand profile process for strategic planning. We're really having to get to sort of the meat and potatoes of it quickly, and the order isn't always the way we like it to work out. But I work boards and senior staff through what are we creating a world to accomplish. And then how are we doing it? And that's really the mission. So I love that we get it. To me, that's the social movement part. I like jarring people out of we're toiling away. We're working in this bubble to say this bubble is part of some really big change you want to see.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to communicate that
Yeah.
in your cascading message.
Yeah. What she said.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we didn't talk about delivery. Do we have like 2 minutes to?
Well, I want to check in with the group because here's
Okay.
here's what I'd like to do. We've got a few more minutes until oh no, we were already supposed to break. Damn it, Kelly. That's okay. Here's what I'd like to suggest. That folks certainly can take a pause and a break, but my hope is we can just keep rolling through this, Kelly. If you're game, we can check in on these questions and make sure we're caught up.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have a few points. I mean, you and I, we just wrap everything up together anyway, so it's going to work out great. And does that work for everybody? Julie, are you okay with this? Can we just keep rolling here for another half hour or so and get? I just hate to kill the momentum and lose folks. What do you think? Are we good to keep going? Let me know. Let me know. All right. Well, you're letting me know because I think we were what the heck, we were supposed to end. Yeah, because the last session's at 4 or 5.
We were supposed to end about 7 minutes ago, right? 8 minutes ago.
Oh, we missed that.
We're a little late.
Yeah. I'm never
We could
late,
end
Kat.
and they could see,
I'm never late.
you're never late. Never late. Just right on time.
I'm promptly
You're
behind.
right on, promptly behind.
I'm always promptly behind.
Promptly behind. I love that. Oh, I gotta write that down. Quote her on that. Promptly behind.
Let's check out some of these messages for a second.
Yes.
Steppy missed yesterday. Get the VIP package. That's the best option. And Kelly put her email in here. Sounds like so much fun. Great. We love fun. We love fun.
Ooh,
Fern, is the 6-word story your mission statement honed down?
Oh,
Does it vary depending on who you talk to?
okay. So no, the 6-word story is it could result in your mission. If you can do that, you need to send that to us. I really need to send it to us to use as examples for like everybody. But no, the 6-word story is more of an exercise to help you get to the very, very core, to challenge yourself to get to the very core of your mission, the heart and soul of what you do.
I think you brought it up just as an example of it's like the emoji example. It just, we're going to test you to keep boiling it down to the hardcore points and bullet points, because sometimes we get wrapped up in the circular talk. I mean, I'm going to give you, I'm really going to give you an example without citing the organization, but I received an appeal letter yesterday. By the time I was finished reading this appeal letter, I got myself so confused. We need $100,000. We raised 1.1, but only 200 came from one-time donors. So we need to make up the gap. Can you give? The hell am I giving money for? We've lost total track of, I want to hear more about the organizations it helped. And while there was some data in there about it, we're $1 million organization. How do we justify asking for $200,000 more? You do it because you're proud of the work you're doing. You don't come up with a convoluted story of why we're going to be short and how we have to make up this $2. No, you say we raised 1.1 last year. You're welcome, because we helped so many organizations. And great. And we're going to need 1.3 next year. So with that, we're going to take a quick pause on recording. We're going to check in on these comments. This is a good time to